he has 4 articles about me on his website in which he suggests that I should be investigated.
Can you imagine the horror?
Robert should then point out, didn't you just tell us all that we should be killed? Before, and you are crying about this?
No, the whole scenario is just awesome, and we spent the past 20 years, not you weren't even born yet, barely, you two, but some of us spent the past 20 years trying to show people that there's a death penalty for apostasy in Islam. For 20 years we were called, well, up until Ali Dawas, we're proud of that, we were called liars and saying Muslims don't believe this and that's not what the Quran says. They would explain the hadiths where Muhammad says if anyone leaves his Islamic religion, kill him. They would explain those, and I've been through this in debates. They would explain those and say this is just referring to people who leave Islam and then go and join a foreign military and then come back and attack Muslims. That's all that's talking about. We're like, that's definitely not what it's talking about. And the schools of Islamic jurisprudence didn't interpret that way. 14 centuries of Muslim scholars didn't interpret that way. You're either ignorant or you're making stuff up and trying to deceive people. And so we spent 20 years being called liars and Islamophobes for saying there's this death penalty for apostates. And now they're shouting it from the rooftops. Ali Dawa, Jake, and Daniel here. And then notice the awesome alliance developing where Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawa jumping in there praising these guys, and so it's like, wait. So the Ali Dawa, the guy who says if his daughter reached puberty at the age of 9, he would tell her she's ready to be married. Muhammad Hijab, who says if you just look at the Quran, you'll get the indication that you can have sex with a 5-year-old. Rallying around Daniel, who says that you can consummate marriage with a 4-year-old if she shows some sort of signs that she's getting precocious puberty or something like that. An 11-month-old baby, maybe her parents won't give her consent, but maybe they will. You don't know what kind of parents you're dealing with. And it's like, these are the new poster boys for Dawa, and my goodness, it is awesome to behold compared to what we had to deal with 10 years ago.
But if they have early signs of puberty, then they might show interest and they might have sexual desires. You know, how else are you going to deal with it? Are you just
Hey, say that to my face!
Run around and have
say that to my face, AP!
Go over there and say it. Go right now.
Yeah, notice he's not coming over and saying it. What?
Dude.
What? See? Power.
All right. I mean, I want to put some stuff on the screen here and pull up and have a look at a few parts of this show that we have seen.
Oh,
Fine, I'm not going to put it on the screen.
okay. I will just let everybody know that I'm going to have a special guest on my channel next week where we're going to be addressing some of the things that Jake, the Muslim metaphysician, said regarding the Trinity not being taught in the early church. I wanted to pull my hair out when he said that, because I'm staring at my computer and I got all these quotes from church fathers talking about Trinitarian theology. Like we're going to cover all that. So just to give everyone a heads up, I think a week from today, we're going to be covering all that on my channel.
Apologetica said, you guys live again. Yes, we are live every night.
AP can't quit us. He needs us on. He's like, he called me earlier. He's like, I can't quit you, IP. I need you on again.
Can't quit you.
Yeah. What am I supposed to do? If I don't do this, then I will do.
You're sitting there watching Netflix.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's see.
And I got
so after the whole introduction,
and then there'll be an opportunity for you guys to also discuss with each other. This is not a debate. This is a discussion. Of course, there's going to be moments of debate and you giving your point of view. That's going to happen no matter what. Naturally, the setting is where that is going to happen. But I want to make sure everybody knows that's my outcome. I think.
By the way, I want to quickly say something. I don't want to pause right away, but he said this is not a debate. But I'm very, very sure, without verifying it, that Daniel already declared it a debate. And that Daniel will also refer to this as a debate and will say something like, I already spanked Robert Spencer in a debate.
I spanked Robert Spencer like I would spank a 4-year-old if I married her and she disobeyed me.
Yeah.
And so on. And so then I would ask the inevitable question. I was, 5 years old or whatever.
Okay.
And I love my parents, and they raised me like.
Backstory.
For me, it's faith. It's religion. because to me, I see it from a few different places, right? One, there's faith, meaning none of us have gone to heaven to see what heaven's going to look like. We're all taking a risk. All of us here are taking a risk. Either we're all going to be right, either we're all going to be wrong, or either one of us is going to be right. Meaning
You're not all going to be right.
Well, we don't know. That's faith. That's prayer.
That's not the possibility.
That's the space. That is impossible. That is impossible.
We've had great experiences in life to say, I had a connection with God. I had a moment with ... And then that's individual to us, right? So to me, it's faith, it's religion, it's enemies, it's common enemies, it's the challenges that's going on in the world, specifically with America as being for the longest time the greatest country in the world. What is affecting that? And then there's a few other things that we'll talk about into as well. So, but for me, it's more from the standpoint of when you've said you've read the Quran.
Why would Patrick bet David block? I'm not even saying anything about like anything bad about him. I do criticize the way he handled some of this. That said, I think he seems like a genuine guy who's like.
He seems all right. Like we would look at him and be like, "What were you thinking with Andrew Tate? What are you thinking with some of this?" But I mean, he seems like a genuine guy, and he's well spoken, seems intelligent, and so on. And so
in my opinion, he appeals to audiences that I completely disagree with. But that said, I have respect for him.
Yeah.
I go on a
seems
show.
cool. Yeah, seems cool, and it's you can see where he wants to go with this. Hey, let's get some of these guys who blast each other and get them in here for a discussion and see if we've got some common ground and so on. And it'd be a good show.
And so your background, you've been in this world. What is your biggest challenge and differences with the religion of Islam?
Well, probably the main thing is the sanctification of violence and the idea that God will bless and even calls upon the believers to commit acts of violence under certain circumstances. Like Rashid here is an ex-Muslim, and so under Islamic law, as it's traditionally and classically formulated...
Is this a bit quiet, or is it just me?
Well, Muhammad said...
Sounds fine to me, I don't know.
If he changes his religion, kill him. And it's still the position of all of the schools of Islamic jurisprudence, Sunni and Shia, that the apostate should be put to death. Now, obviously, this is not something that means that every apostate has to always go around watching himself, because you have to have somebody who's willing to do that. But those who do it, they think, well, now I have done something that Allah has commanded, and He will bless me for doing it. And me, myself, because I was standing up for the freedom of speech, 2015, Pamela Geller and I put on in Texas a Muhammad art exhibit and cartoon contest. And it was actually, we featured a lot of classic Shiite Persian art depicting Muhammad, as well as contemporary art that was from a more critical standpoint. And a couple of jihadis came from Phoenix, key members actually of the Islamic Community Center of Phoenix. One of them was featured in a recruitment video for them, and they tried to kill us.
So I don't want to just play without pausing, but we get the point. So he talks immediately about the violence in Islam, the blasphemy and apostasy laws, to which, of course, as expected, actually not as expected, but Daniel gives a response that is like, this is just a small part of Islam. He almost
this is
like
only 5%. I don't know how he's doing. I don't know how he's doing his calculations. So notice. So Robert points out. He's asked about like what's your main beef here, and it's that Islam calls for violence against people like Rashid, and he includes people like him for blasphemy. And that's interesting because notice the attempt in Texas, two jihadis showed up. Matter of fact, Vocab knew one of them. It was actually part of the basis for the plot of Islamicize Me, was someone converting and then deciding to go on a killing spree against someone for a cartoon contest. But these guys got killed, who were on their way to brutally murder Robert Spencer, Pamela Geller, and so on. And so notice this would fit in right with Muhammad Hijab's video about Salman Rushdie, where he's saying, hey, that's not what I do. I'm not going to go kill the people, but we've got our gangsters. We've got our gangsters in Islam, and we can't control them, so they're going to kill you. And so Robert's pointing out, hey, this guy's under a death sentence. I'm under a death sentence. Jihadis have actually showed up to kill me. And so, I kind of have a problem with this ideology that really wants us dead.
Fantastic.
It's well, I mean, that's one of the things that Patrick brought up in there is Islam like the mafia, and you have Muhammad Ajab saying, "Yeah, we got these gangsters to go around and do our dirty work for us, and then we kill anyone who leaves."
Gangsters?
It would be unfortunate if something were to happen to you if you didn't.
Not that
pay
I
me,
would
yeah?
do anything.
So, just a few points here. Number one, it's interesting how we want to talk about Islam as a religion, but the religion is 95% like what Jake mentioned. It's about worshiping God, being devoted to
About
a
worshiping
righteous way of-
Muhammad.
He calculated it very precisely. It's actually 95%, and
99% of Islam is Muhammad. The 1% is everything else. It's everything built around an illiterate 7th century Arabian caravan robber. And
my immediate reaction to this, as soon as he started speaking, was like, he goes into this with right up front with this passive aggressive attitude. Like Robert is bringing up the point that his main problem with Islam is that it glorifies violence and intolerance. And then Daniel immediately starts with, "It's interesting that we talk about the religion of Islam, but instead of just addressing the issue."
Yeah, so just a few points here. Number one, it's interesting how we want to talk about Islam as a religion, but the religion is 95% like what Jake mentioned. It's about worshiping God, being devoted to a righteous way of life, loving your neighbors, taking care of your parents. That's what 95% of Islam is about. Yet there are criminal punishments, which we're going to discuss. There is conquest, there is war theory, there's all of this in Islam.
Now hold up, David, that's not even true. Correct me if I'm wrong, but a few people have analyzed the Quran based on how much of it deals with what topic, and found that actually more than half of it deals with disbelievers, war, and similar things.
yeah, I don't recall the exact percentages, but yeah, you've seen that before with how much of the Quran deals with these kinds of issues, how much of the Hadith deals with these kinds of issues, how much of the Sirah literature deals with these kinds of issues, and it's a bit more than 5%, I have to say. And the idea that 95% of Islam is just, oneness of Allah. It's, come on, dude. We know too much about your religion with, your child rights and all this other stuff.
I mean, as soon as you start reading the Quran, like the second chapter, which is the first.
I'm sorry. Black Angel said 5% death, 95% pleasure machine.
I forgot.
Yes, it's all pleasure. Well, I mean, Brother Rashid made a good point that even if Islam is only 5% this, it's still horrible because you could have a glass of water that's like 95% water and 5% poison. It's still going to kill you. It doesn't matter if it's just 5%. So this analogy that they're making, there's only 5%, but that doesn't really change anything. I mean, who cares? Even if you've got these horrible things. It's like if you got a guy up on stage who's running for president and he says all these great things like, I'm going to lower taxes, I'm going to increase help for the poor, all this stuff. By the way, we're also going to round up all the Jews and throw them in prison. Like, okay,
Yeah.
leading up to that, that is the one thing I'm not going to vote for.
So we've got elections coming up and so on. So yeah, the idea would be a politician comes up and I'm going to lay out my plan, and he goes through 95% of his plan, right? He goes through 95% of his plan, and it's all work on the economy and just work on the economy, and we'll do all this stuff, and then like the last 5% is we're going to bone 5-year-olds and kill apostates and slaughter anyone for blasphemy and wage terrorist attacks against the entire world and beat our wives into submission. So hey, that 5% sounds like it matters quite a bit. In fact, it seems that is what we should be focusing on here, and not your feelings.
But why?
About
Why?
your
95%. 95% is about completely irrelevant stuff. So my suggestion would be, okay, we got that. Okay, 5% is a little bit controversial, but how about the 95%? There's a lot of stuff in there that could be useful. Let's focus on that. Let's discuss it. Let's find some common ground here. Okay, it's fine. Yeah, the 5% we don't agree with that. But yeah.
Hey, side note, you got to break it down quick. But what is the deal with? So my internet went out yesterday. I was trying to come back with my phone, but even that wouldn't work for more than few seconds at a time. But I caught some when I was trying to sign back in a bit later. I was catching you guys talking about Daniel and a pleasure machine. And I see everyone commenting and joking about the pleasure machine. I was like, this sounds like something I need to go back and see.
You missed a great segment because we reviewed Daniel's opening segment on the third part of the debate, where he just goes on this big analogy about this company called Pleasure Inc. and they invent the pleasure machine, and you got to strap it on, and you get unlimited pleasure from this strap-on pleasure machine that you can use. And we pointed out that his pleasure machine idea is just Islamic heaven, but he's putting it up as it's a bad idea. So we said, like, this is just a dichotomy. Daniel's like, you can either be a secular humanist and get their pleasure machine, or you can be a Muslim and get his lovely strap-on pleasure machine when you die. So you missed a lot of great jokes. I'm just warning you.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to check that out.
It sounds interesting.
Yeah. I actually tried to post. I tried to post a super chat, and I put Muhammad had a pleasure machine. He called her Aisha, but it wouldn't let me.
Don't. No, but yeah. So his idea is basically that the liberalism is a pleasure machine and it destroys everything. And those who don't want to use the pleasure machine are being persecuted by Pleasure Inc.
His opening statement was, David. His opening statement was 10 minutes. He went on for 8 minutes about this hypothetical world where they're using pleasure machines. But 8 minutes of your opening statement is just an imaginary story of what you think secular humanism
And
means.
if you agree with secular humanism, then you're going to spend all your time with your strap-on pleasure machine eating bug paste.
Yes, that's essentially what he said.
And what's good is what's funny is that Matt Dillahunty, the whole time while he's talking about the pleasure machine, he's just giving this awkward look to the audience, and then
that sounds like Matt.
And his response to the whole pleasure machine thing was just a few words, and how that is the dumbest thing he's ever heard in his life. And then he just moved on to, anyway, let's talk about terrorism. Is Islam what did he say? Something.
Is Islam either promoting terrorism or incapable or just bad at stopping it? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. He immediately jumped into that. And
I saw that while I was trying to. I saw that part when I was trying to sign on.
That was perfectly handled.
And it's amazing scientific prophecy that Muhammad talked about this strap-on pleasure machine when he referred to the leather strap of the. I can't even say it. Oh boy.
So anyway, I was going to bring up the Quran here and talk about the 95%. Daniel Kikiju says the Quran is all about, Islam is all about the oneness of God and worshipping and being good to parents and stuff like that. But even if you read the Quran, you start reading the Quran, the first chapter that is actually relevant to the contents of the Quran, it says, Alif Lam Mim, this is the book, there is no doubt about it, a guide for those who believe in the unseen and who believe in what we have revealed to you, and to guide it. And then immediately, look, not even 1 minute passes and starts, those who disbelieve, it is all the same for them whether you warn them or do not warn them, they will not believe. Allah has set a seal upon their hearts and upon their hearing, and over their vision as a veil.
Shame on you.
And for them is a great punishment. And of the people are some who say we believe in Allah and the last day, but they are not believers. They deceive Allah, they think to deceive Allah and those who believe, but they deceive nobody except themselves. In their hearts is sickness, so Allah has increased their sickness. This is how the Quran starts. And this guy is like, but we just talked about the bad stuff. Islam is 95% just about worshipping and, being good to parents.
Well, I mean, they've tried to bring up the fact that, the Christian Old Testament is there. And, Spencer and she tried to address it. But here's the thing is, just on the pragmatic level, Christians are not going around, on average, on large numbers, advocating for apostasy laws, for wife beating or child marriage. And the whole thing with the Old Testament, though, is, again, scholars have noted, and earlier Christian scholars and rabbis, even from earlier periods, have noted that the laws, the death penalties for those, don't apply anymore because the covenant was broken, as Jeremiah talked about in Jeremiah 31. So that time has passed. And scholars, if you read, for example, Dilbert Hillers or John Walton, for example, they'll note that we've misunderstood what the Mosaic Law was about. It wasn't even a law. It's more akin to Proverbs. It's teaching judicial wisdom. The Torah is going to be more similar to things like the Code of Hammurabi, the Code of Libet Ishtar, Middle Assyrian laws. And none of those were laws. This was a way a king could, explain how wise he was by showing how he would explain justice through case scenario. Moses is sort of doing the same thing. It's teaching judicial wisdom, but that does not mean you apply this as if these are like modern day laws of like some sort of nation. It's more akin to Proverbs. You're teaching wisdom on how to act, how to think, how you go through case law. But these case laws in the Torah are not meant to be applied. See the video I did called The Misunderstood Mosaic Law, and I cite all the scholarship on this and just show that we've greatly misunderstood that. Muslims included think it's more like the Quran in their rules. It's absolutely not at all, and it never was intended to be that by the original writers and audience.
No, you're just a liberal. You're just being influenced by liberalism.
Yeah, that's their only retort. That's the only thing they can come up with when you throw facts.
I have to say a thing here. I happen to be more knowledgeable and experienced with Christians and Christianity than the average Muslim, who doesn't know anything about Christianity and Christians. But there's always this very funny gap where, because Muslims do not understand Christianity, they think that every Christian they come across, the average Christian, is not a real Christian, not even a proper Christian. So their understanding is that when they encounter an average Christian today who repeats average Christian talking points as they were for a long time, they think, oh no, this sounds like liberalism. This sounds like a liberal. This must be a liberal. You're not a real Christian. You're not a traditional Christian. You're a liberal Christian. You're an atheist. You're secular. Where are the real Christians? Where are the traditional ones? Get rid of the traditional ones. And when you ask them about the traditional ones, they cannot mention a single person who is actually the ideal Christian that they have in mind, who is the traditional Christian, who thinks exactly like them.
Well, AP, what they don't realize is that there's overlap between liberalism and Christianity, because as scholars like John Witt, Tom Holland, Charles Taylor, who wrote a book called A Secular Age, notes that basically what happened was during like the medieval period, beginning and then and moving on into the Renaissance and Enlightenment, deistic and atheistic thinkers basically took what they liked from Christianity, it took it out and tried to make a worldview based around certain values they got from it. So things like freedom of religion, freedom of speech, equality, anti-slavery ideas, these were in Christian values long before liberalism was even a thing. So there's going to be more overlap there, and Muslims don't realize that what happened was deistic thinkers took what they liked from Christianity, rejected other parts, and then just built a worldview of that. So liberalism and Christianity have some overlap. Neither David or I are liberals for many reasons, but we are going to find common ground with a lot of liberals because a lot of liberals took from the Christian worldview. I mean, and this is just the consensus of what historians will tell you. Muslims don't seem to realize this, and it doesn't matter how many times we point this out, they still think liberalism is something divorced from Christianity, when really, the idea of separation of church and state goes back to Jesus' very words, render to Caesar what is Caesar's and give to God what is God's. Tom Holland notes that was the first seed that inspired this long tradition of separation of church and state.
It's just I don't even know what to do with them. They get to define what a Christian is. They have, as you pointed out, they have this idea that anything in liberalism is like this, this third new thing. Chesterton described it as Christian virtues gone mad.
Yes.
In other words, once you have a system of Christian virtue, but you have a foundation for it, and then you take the virtues and you wipe away the foundation that tied everything together, you end up with like these idols. So we're gonna prop up tolerance as like an idol, but it's lost its connection to everything else, and so it just kind of goes insane without being connected to everything else, and so. Yeah, that's how it seems to me. It's they took a bunch of Christian virtues, separated them from each other, and then different groups started propping up different ones as their chief virtue, and it doesn't work like that. Things start breaking down.
This is so funny. Look, the whole point of I just went on Daniel Kikich's Twitter page, X page.
Yeah, get it right.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize. Anyway, but
Yeah, it's one thing for Daniel to say these guys have to die, but how dare you say Twitter instead of X?
But here, this is how he behaves immediately. Like, this was so predictable. Oof, emotional damage. He looks at the comment section, comments all left by Muslims, and says emotional damage. No one likes a crybaby, I guess. This is how he acts immediately after this show.
Yeah.
After the very show that he was invited to in order to build bridges. This is how he behaves. And Patrick Bet-David seriously thinks that he can invite these guys and somehow come together and build bridges. He doesn't. I'm sorry, but he doesn't understand Islam. He doesn't understand Muslims. He doesn't understand what he gets into when he talks to people like this.
Yeah, he's thinking, oh, hey, this Daniel guy, he's really having a good discussion here, and they're mocking Brother Rashid for getting emotional because he converted when he was young. He's cast out by his family. He knows tons of people who have to flee their families and so on because of the concern about being killed for apostasy. And it's kind of an emotional issue for him because it's what he deals with all the time. And it reminds me of Daniel when he was responding to girls who are crying because they can't go to school anymore in Afghanistan. So they're told, nope, you don't get to go to school anymore. And he's just mocking them going, ooh, I don't get to go to school anymore. And just completely mocking them. And it's like, this is the dude you're dealing with. Girls don't get to go to school anymore. Ha ha ha. Yes, we're going to kill you as soon as we rise to power, all you apostates and so on. And oh, you guys actually care about this stuff? Well, you're stupid.
I mean, it's like what he did here. He's saying that he's mocking Rashid, who doesn't want to die.
Yeah.
Calling him a crybaby. Like this is not a moral person. This is a sick, twisted guy.
I want to say something. Muslims, Islamists who watch and who genuinely engage in such behavior, next time you complain and cry about persecution, next time you cry and complain about the rights of Muslims, I don't know what you want to complain about. Israel, want to complain about China, want to complain about Burma here and there, whatever it is.
Someone saying in an article that you should be investigated.
Oh yeah. Next time you cry about these things, you know what? Shut up. Nobody cares. Go cry in a corner.
Cry me a river.
Little pathetic weaklings.
Cry me a river.
Idiots. Go cry. Who cares?
Cry me a river.
That's how you act. That's how you act. You mock people. You mock people for saying, I simply don't want to be killed. But then in the next moment, you go out there and you start crying about persecution. Muslims are treated like this and like that.
Yeah, think about this, by the way. It's like, when people make a burqa law or something like that.
Islamophobia.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about the idea of telling women they can't wear this. And so I would advocate strong penalties against people who are forcing women to wear this. But as far as like the government saying no, you can't wear this thing, I'm like, I'm not sure that government should be controlling. So there's a part of me that's like on their side. But notice, I mean, wait a minute, if people like Daniel are just going to mock people who don't want to be murdered for apostasy, if he's going to mock girls who can't even go to school anymore because the Taliban has made it illegal, it's like, why does he then expect us to care that women are being told they can't wear burqas in school or something like that? Like,
Let's have a look at that, by the way. I just remembered.
تا دیروز خبر شنیدم خیلی خوشایند بود برام با خدا اشک ریختم اما امروز خیلی جگر خود دیدم
Oh no, I can't go to school. Oh. This is Daniel speaking. Why can't they let me go to school like they do in America and Europe? I can't go to school.
The only silver lining in this is that
their new hero.
Daniel is that people like this cannot ever really gain power in today's world because they can't build coalitions. It's like Nick Fuentes. You attack everyone who like has some overlap with you, and so you end up creating more enemies than allies. And Daniel's attacking Muslim women here who want to go to school. That's not going to go look good to many members of the whole Muslim community. So I mean, the only silver lining is that he's just going to put himself in this fringe corner, and you're never going to have a coalition to actually gain any sort of power to implement your ideas.
That's why it's all awesome. That's why it's all awesome. Like they're rallying around this guy that will completely alienate them from everyone.
Imagine how messed up this is. I mean, there are little girls, there are teenagers, I don't know, young adults, whatever it is, who are now who are blocked from going to their schools, and they're crying. Little kids are crying, and Daniel Kikachu is there, like, he's mocking them. Like, imagine. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
imagine reading that to something else. You know, it's just so messed up, and the fact that he does this to not even to non-Muslims or anything, he does this to his fellow Muslims. You know, Muslim kids, Muslim girls, or Muslim teenagers. He mocks them. You know, wearing their hijabs and crying because they can't go to school. And he's here mocking them, intimidating their crying. This is why stuff like this is why I think that there is something really, really mentally wrong with Daniel Kiki's with his personality, with his mental health. I don't know, but there is something really, really wrong with this guy, because this is not something that a regular person thinks is enjoyable or fun.
No, I've told you, dissocial psychopath, not a real psychopath. Dissocial psychopath. That's someone who has adapted the characteristics and symptoms of a psychopath because they're adaptive within a certain subculture, and so he is in a certain culture that where this type of behavior is adaptive for his popularity and his fans, and so, yep.
Yeah, when he put this out and he got attacked for this, he accused these girls of being like Western agents.
Yes.
Somehow, and it's like, listen, even if you're right in your delusions that this is what is going on, you don't mock children. It just looks bad. So, ironically, if he was right that these are Western agents, he's playing into the CIA or the FBI's hand by just making himself look bad because he's falling for this, and now he's mocking them, which is just going to look bad. So, if this is the CIA, which most likely is not, he just played right into their hands. So he's not very smart when it comes to this.
These are CIA agents. These kids are CIA agents.
It's
yeah,
ridiculous.
They are. Secret agent. But I mean, think about it. Little. These are girls. They started school before the Taliban didn't allow them to go to school anymore. So these girls are excited. This is where we're going to learn. We get to learn to read and write and get an education. We learn math and all that. And then they're just told one day, nope, no more. And so what are we going to do? Nothing. You get married off to some much older guy, and that's your life. And they're crying over it. And he mocks them. Interesting.
Yeah, but hey, let's build bridges, man. Let's build more bridges.
But it's interesting how when a conversation is about Islam, we focus on that 5% instead of the 95% of what Islam is about. We don't see this kind of double standard with like Christians. So if you have someone like Matt Walsh is a traditional Christian. There's slavery in the Bible. There's punishment for blasphemers in the Bible. There's killing of heretics in the church tradition. There's no discussion of that with Matt Walsh, right? Or Ben Shapiro. There is killing of blasphemers in the Hebrew Bible. There is, punishments for apostasy in the Talmud. There's no discussion of that with Ben Shapiro. You can talk about, other values, and that's what the discussion focuses on. But the Islamophobia narrative.
I want to say something before I let you guys go into the truth on that. But just as somebody who is an outsider, I just want to say one thing. Daniel Kikachu is sitting here as somebody who actually advocates for apostasy laws, slavery, child marriage, wife beating, blasphemy laws, this and that. And he's not just the only one. He's one of many who advocate for these things. Can he point me at significant Christian figures who also believe in killing blasphemers, killing apostates, slavery, waging war right now, and so on? Even if he was right, and if these things were fundamental and absolutely a part of Christianity, is this a problem, though?
No.
is this a reality in our world? Right? No,
Well,
it's not.
that's what I was going to say. I was gonna say, you don't see prominent Christian thinkers like, or Jewish thinkers like Matt Walsh or Ben Shapiro saying this. I mean, if interviewer asked Matt Walsh, "What do you think about killing apostates?" He said, "Well, we're not going to do that. That's a violation of their freedom of religion, the First Amendment." All right, end of the interview. I mean, like that would be the end of it. You wouldn't get this Daniel Kikuchi response where you're like, "Well, you know, we believed in the order and the structures." No, they would just condemn it. And because, again, as Robert Spencer even said in this conversation, they look at the Old Testament as if it's just another version of the Quran. And it isn't. They don't understand the scholarship around it. They don't understand Christian tradition around it. Christians have, for 2,000 years, have looked at the Old Testament and gone, yeah, those rules don't apply to us. They were for Israel in a specific time and a specific purpose and place. A lot of it is just wisdom text, not even laws. They don't apply. We're under the new covenant now. And what are the commands of the new covenant? Love thy neighbor, believe in God, get baptized, partake of the Eucharist, these kinds of things. We don't have things like apostasy laws in the New Testament. We're told to love thy neighbor, treat everyone equal, pray for those that are our enemies. Like, I don't know where he's getting this stuff from, but they just constantly, the only argument they have is to take the Old Testament and just force it to be like the Quran to make theirs look better, which is such a bad argument. And it's funny that they constantly have to keep comparing all the bad stuff in the Old Testament that doesn't apply at all to the Quran. Like, that's the stuff they're always wanting to compare to the Quran. Like, that doesn't make the Quran look good.
Yeah, Daniel, I promised you, if there are significant Christian speakers around today, to such an extent that there are Muslim speakers like yourself, and Muhammad Hijab, and Ali Dawa, and Sheikh Uthman, and Asman Hakim, and basically every actual traditional Muslim country out there, and so on. If there are Christians out there who also agree with such things and say, yeah, we should totally bring apostasy laws back, I will completely go against that. I will fight them. I will say this is a problem. Why are we not talking about this? But hey, that's very far from reality. In fact, we are very, very far from reality. While you are sitting there saying that Brother Rashid should be killed for leaving us.
And it's really weird that people who understand abrogation in their own religion, where Allah can reveal something and then completely change the rule a day later if he wants. He can give you a rule and then tell you something else later, and he says he's bringing something better than what he delivered before. And they can understand, hey, yeah, you were told you can practice mutta for a while, and then later on, no, you were told it's okay to drink for a while, but then later on, no. But they can't get their minds around the idea that no, there's a covenant here, there's a covenant with Noah, and that's in the Bible. There's a covenant here, and that's a covenant with Abraham, and that's there, and there's a covenant here. It's with the children of Israel. It says over and over again, this is for the children of Israel, and then you get the command, and then you get the covenant that is for the world. That's for everyone, and what are you supposed to live by? What am I as a Christian supposed to live by? And when we say we're supposed to live by the commands of the covenant that we're actually under, the agreement that we're actually under, no, because there was this other covenant and it said this, therefore you have to do that, and that's your real position, and that's just insane. I mean, if you look at the text, Noah is told, eat anything you want. There are no food restrictions. Eat anything you want. You get to the law of Moses, and there are all kinds of restrictions. You get to
just for Israel.
Yeah, you get to the Christian covenant, and we don't have the same dietary restrictions, and so it's like, I mean, it's pretty obvious from a biblical perspective. There are different agreements. So a covenant, by the way, just for anyone who's new to this, a covenant is God says you're going to do this, and these are your obligations. I'm going to do this, and that's the arrangement that we set up. And God made a covenant with the children of Israel, and then for some insane reason, pretty much every Muslim Dawa guy will say, thinks you Christians eat. Well, let me put it this way: they either think in ignorance that that applies to us, that those commands are directed towards us, or they know that's nonsense, but they say it anyway just because it works well for responding to criticism against Islam. But yeah, so that's one point. And then the other issue, which we've already brought up, it's like, okay, Daniel, why are we focusing on that 5% if it's just 5%? But why are we focused on that? Because there are guys like you spreading it around the world and claiming you're going to take over and you're going to put all these people to death. So it's kind of relevant. And as AP pointed out, yeah, hey, if you find a bunch of Christians saying, you know what, we need to go slaughter everyone in the name of Jesus, yeah, we'd have a problem with that too, and that would be a big issue. We don't see that. It's popular in one religion, which is why we're all concerned about it.
What?
Okay.
It's just
By the way, Daniel Hikachu is in the chat with his second account. He's very obsessed in defending himself here with the second account instead of just coming with his real account, which is very funny.
What's his account? What's his second account? Strap on pleasure machine?
Yeah.
it's lasering in on these specific topics, which is fine. We can discuss that, but I just want to note the double standard. So the other framing of this whole discussion that I want to put out here, though, is that I'm wondering, like, this standard of, there should be no punishment for blasphemy, for example. Let's just put that out there. There should be no punishment for mocking and insulting a religion, attacking people's values. Is that coming from a Christian perspective? Is that coming from is that coming from the church tradition? Is that coming from the Bible? Because when we look at the Bible, we see in Leviticus, we see in Deuteronomy that blasphemers should be put
Notice he just applied that to Christians. Like that, those are Christian rules.
Entice, like your son or your daughter or your wife entices you to worship other than God, then have no mercy. Put them to death without due process mentioned, without any kind of...
I wonder if he ever understands what the word testament or covenant means.
No.
Well, also, I mean, in the passage he's quoting, he's talking about people that are actually coming to entice you to worship false idols and Canaan. It's not just somebody who leaves a religion; it's somebody who comes back to you and says, "Hey, let's go over and sacrifice." Now, also in the ancient Near East, there wasn't a concept of religions like we have today. So this is very weird for him to apply this to, like, leaving a religion. That just simply didn't exist in the ancient mindset. The concept really sort of comes out of the Judeo-Christian worldview slowly but surely, because the Judeo-Christian worldview is only worship this God. In the ancient Near East, there were multiple gods. You could go make sacrifices if you wanted. You didn't have to. So he's applying a later modern standard onto the text, and the text is
He was the thing, though. Here's the thing, though. Whenever it gets to this discussion, I feel like we are all falling into the trap that Daniel is putting out there the entire time. And still arguing about why that is actually not part of Christianity, why why that is not really relevant, why he's misunderstanding that. It doesn't even matter. He is just bringing an objection of basically, so you Christians don't have these rules. Why don't you have these rules? You should have these rules too, according to my understanding of Christianity. If we go back in Christian tradition and history 1,000 to 2,000 years back, it doesn't matter at all. Just focus.
It's just
your Christian opponents, the average Christian, the majority of Christians here, they do not believe that apostates, blasphemers, and so on should be executed. You do. That is the problem. Let us focus. Let's not talk about theory. Nothing. It doesn't matter at all.
Well, he's also wrong that freedom of religion is not a good thing. If you look at research that Robert Woodbury has done in, like, Togoland in Africa, when Catholic and Protestant missionaries had to compete, it actually made these regions better because they were competing by increasing the quality of their schools or their hospitals. When certain governments came in and said, "Oh no, we're only going to allow Catholic missionaries here, we're only going to allow Protestant missionaries here," it actually slowed down growth and development. So it's actually kind of, when you opened it up for freedom of religion, the competition in trying to get converts actually led to better quality.
Yeah, it's this weird situation, like AP pointed out. Okay, I mean, think about this. It would sound absolutely insane to me to say, David, here's the new covenant that you're under, and here are the commands that are directed towards you under the new covenant. Now, instead of following those, the commands that are directed towards you as someone in the new covenant, you have to actually go to Leviticus and follow that rule that was directed towards different group as part of a different covenant, that's what you need to follow. That sounds like insane. Like what in the world are you talking about? Like who thinks like that? I mean, for you Muslims, that would be like me saying, hey, you were allowed to drink alcohol for a while, then you were commanded no alcohol, but since since there was an earlier command to do it, that's what you're under. You're not supposed to follow the one that's actually directed towards you as a person now. You're supposed to follow the one that came before that was directed towards other people in a certain historical situation. And I mean, Muslims defend abrogation all the time. They defend the rationality of it. Well, it made sense for God to give these stepping stones that eventually led to the final set of rules. When we try to follow our final set of rules, they say, no, you got to go back to that earlier rule because that helps us when you're criticizing the Quran.
This is also an interesting point, by the way. Jake later in this discussion asks Robert if he thinks that killing apostates is inherently evil or not, and Robert then thinks about it and thinks yes, it actually is. It goes against the humans being being equal and free and all of that. And Jake then says, so why was it then allowed in the old law if it's inherently evil? But by that logic, can we not ask him the same thing about drinking? Can we not say is drinking alcohol
breastfeeding adults
inherently evil or not? If it is evil, then why was it at one point allowed?
Yeah, and it got a bit sloppy with the arguing, and so Robert pointed out completely different kind of situation, and you could go into more detail, which I did when I was having a discussion with Daniel. It's you've got in the Old Testament, you've got this pillar of cloud that's leading them, and then this pillar of cloud and pillar of fire is giving them commands. And you say, okay, well, if I disobey this pillar of cloud, this pillar of fire, it's clear I'm rejecting God here. I'm not rejecting some random guy. It's clear what I'm doing. I'm knowingly rebelling against the Almighty. So you've got this issue that this covenant is tied to the land. If at any point you don't want to be part of the covenant, the border's 3 miles that way. You do not have to be part of this. And so it is a different situation than someone like Daniel coming along and saying, hey, you left Islam, I want to kill you. So anyway, notice you can talk about the ethics of both the situations, but for them to keep acting like it's the same situation where, in Christianity, you believe that there are revelations of a previous covenant for people who are in a situation where there's a covenant tied to a land and they've all witnessed the miracles and certain laws are applied, and therefore someone who goes against it is clearly and indisputably rebelling against God, and not just what someone is telling them about God. That's a relevant distinction right there. Again, you can still discuss the ethics of it, how this if you think there's a problem with killing apostates in any situation, you can say, well, why don't we think through the issue here? But to act like they're the same thing and that this is part of like Christianity today, if we weren't infected by liberalism, it's just nonsense. And the fact that people actually listening to him as he spouts just absolute insane, idiotic nonsense tells us a lot about dawah.
So this is and here is where you see the general attitude and the deception of online Muslims and the Muslim apologists who have basically has built this whole attitude here. If you go into the comment section of this podcast episode, you will see that the top comments are very much all in agreement with the Muslim side, and they all say they have Muslim names. I have to credit Patrick. They try to stay objective and say like the Muslims were right. Patrick knows more about Islam than the guy who claims was Muslim and converted to Christianity. The Muslims wrote books on Islam, and Christians also wrote books on Islam. I don't know.
He say more than the convert.
Yeah,
it seemed that Rashid was schooling them.
Rashid is the most knowledgeable one at the table. I would say in terms of the beliefs and the the values of Islam. And of course, these Muslim commentators think that even Daniel Kikuchi knows more. And I would say Daniel Kikuchi is theologically seen the least knowledgeable at the table. I don't know. I'm not sure about that part, but he's not very knowledgeable. But
yeah, he's knowledgeable on the topics he deals with.
Yeah.
But not on. I've never seen any.
But you see the
indication
top
that he knows
comments
what
there,
he's
like
talking about
the likes, because Muslims spam the comment section as always because they think.
No, they
that,
prepare. They prepare, and they're sent there. They're sent there by the other delegates.
Public opinion by spamming. But if you actually go into the newest comments, for example, which they do not like, you will see among the crowd of still Muslims spamming quite some comments here. Like I saw one earlier. What was that? Jihad, a holy war against the West. You will not see such a comment at the top. Immediately you will hear stopping by to show some love to Robert. Guess how many times you see positive comments for the Christian side at the top? You don't. You find them all at the bottom of these top comments, with Muslims responding to them and basically mocking those comments. And you will find at the top comments from Muslims either admitting to being Muslims or pretending to be Christians or atheists or Jews and saying, I was an atheist until I watched this discussion. And this made me...
I showed this discussion to 7 priests, and they all converted to Islam. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Wow.
The Pope just watched this and converted to Islam.
I am a Christian, but I must say that the Muslims were much better. I am embarrassed with the Christians. Like,
It's amazing how much those same comments always show up on these types of videos. Like, it's so interesting, and that they just happen to all basically be the same scripted comments.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, that's how dishonest the entire community is. I just don't know how else to put it. But this is so dishonest. It's embarrassing. And they think that this somehow influences public opinion. It doesn't. The average person will listen to what is being said here, and you could see during the live chat, which is not shown, that people were quite angry about the fact that these Muslim guys are sitting here and actually saying my opponent there should be put to death, and the other apostates should be too. But of course, they will drown this.
Is that coming from the church tradition? Is that coming from the Bible?
What?
Yeah, it's coming from the Bible, Daniel.
Oh yeah.
Should be put to death. You're criticize Islam. I'm wondering, is that criticism on the basis of the Bible? Is that on the basis of the church tradition? Or is this a liberal, secular, modernist critique of Islam? So I want to know, am I debating or discussing with 2 Christians or 2 atheists or 2 liberal secularists? Like,
I really want Daniel to give me a very brief list, a handful of actual Christians, like real, traditional Christians. Like, can you point me at those, or is every Christian that you can think of a liberal, secular Christian? And if that is so, then maybe Daniel, you're misunderstanding.
Well, has Daniel
Christianity.
Has he even read the New Testament?
I doubt.
No.
You can look at.
He goes to websites. He goes to websites that are attacking various positions.
Because if you look at the first epistle of John, like the first epistle of John talks about apostates and says like they went out from us because they were never of us. The perfect opportunity to say we should kill them, and it doesn't say
Honor them
that.
in the name of Jesus.
There's apostates are mentioned in the New Testament, and there's nothing about death penalty, killing, this kind of stuff. Not even like, oh, I wish we had political power so we could kill them. There's none of that. And what you see Jesus teaching is love your enemies, pray for them. If somebody rejects the gospel, dust the feet off your sandals and move on to the next town. This kind of stuff. So maybe Daniel just needs to sit and read the New Testament for a change.
Excuse me, Michael. Is this coming from the Bible, or is this coming from secular humanism?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
My
Straight out of
secular
the Bible.
humanism is like my secular humanism is telling me to read the Bible.
The harshest penalty under the new covenant, the biggest penalty that you can give out is excommunication. It's hey, if you do not want to follow the rules of the church, there's the door right there. Bye.
That's oppression.
Hope the best for you. You don't have to follow these rules. There is the door over there. That's the rule.
That's
There is-
oppression.
there is no there is no we have to kill you if you walk out that door. The Apostle Paul said, "Who am I to judge those outside the church? God will judge those outside the church."
No.
So there's the door. Let God deal with them. You don't have to control the entire world. And somehow, according to Daniel, who's apparently never read any of this, what we're actually supposed to do is say, but in Leviticus it said this, which is a completely different group. So I'm going to go by that and completely ignore the teachings that are directed towards me as a Christian.
No, this is all secular humanism. This is all liberalism. It's clearly evil. It just pushing people away. Just saying, okay, well, let them go, and God will judge them. This is clearly evil. This is clearly oppressive. What you have to do is execute them. This is the merciful way of dealing with them.
Secular humanists built a time machine. They went back in time.
Secular humanists wrote that. Secular humanists gave you all of these ideas.
And your secular humanist Bible that tells you to love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, and to do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Love your enemies. Are you getting this from the Bible, or are you getting this from secular humanism or from liberalism here?
Yeah.
I mean, read the book. What Daniel should read is a book called Human Rights and Christianity: An Introduction. And every chapter is a different author, and they basically just point out like modern understanding of human rights that manifests in like Vatican II, for example, comes back to like Christian ideas and Christian doctrines that have been laid down over the Christian history of 2,000 years. So when he sees us doing things that are similar to like secular humanists, it's because there's overlap there. We're not secular humanists, but in a lot of ways, the values that we basically have are very similar, or more similar to secular humanists than they will be to Muslims, because as G.K. Chesterton said, it's just Christian ethics gone mad. So there's going to be overlap there.
This is his probably third biggest fallacy. So he's like the king of black and white thinking, right? Like you either have this leftist dystopia or you have Sharia dystopia. There is no other options. Pick your dystopia. If you want to avoid this dystopia, you have to take this dystopia. No other options. So he's got that one. He's the king of the slippery slope fallacy. Meaning, if you don't slaughter all these people right now, then you're basically, if you let your girls go to school, then they're basically going all the way to OnlyFans. That's the only possible outcome there. So the slippery slope. And then this one here. Hey, secular humanists do this, or liberal, whatever you want to call them. They do this. Christians do this. Therefore, Christians are these, secular humanists or whatever. That's a fallacy. It's like notice the reasoning. This is, by the way, it's called the fallacy of the undistributed middle. You can look if you ever want to look it up. You can see why that is. But it's the same fallacy. All cats are mammals. My dog is a mammal. Therefore, my dog is a cat. Right. See the reasoning. It's A. All A are C. B is C. Therefore, B is A. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous reasoning, right? So notice, the pagans took a pilgrimage to Mecca. Muhammad took a pilgrimage to Mecca. Therefore, Muhammad is a pagan.
What's the problem?
The secular humanists believe in this human right. Christians believe in this human right. Therefore, Christians are secular humanists.
Exactly.
It's stupid, insanely ridiculous reasoning, and like everything that comes out of this mouth
Look at me, you know you're done.
is some fallacy.
David, you just don't get it. If you let your 9-year-old go to school and don't marry her off at that age, the next thing you know, you're going to be running around with a strap-on pleasure machine, peeing all over the walls.
Yep,
I mean,
eating bug paste.
Two options. It's the only two. There's no other middle. There's nothing else.
Yeah, guys, I just want to make sure, because that's an important fallacy when you're watching Daniel, because he does this all the time. But you get, and it's pretty standard in Islamic apologetics, like when Muslims try to argue that Jesus was a Muslim. Look, he prayed there. The Muslims pray. Jesus prayed. Therefore, Jesus is a Muslim, right? They use this ridiculous reasoning. Again, think about it. Elvis likes peanut butter and banana sandwiches. I like peanut butter and banana sandwiches. Therefore, I'm Elvis. Give me the keys to Graceland. That's like ridiculous, insanely stupid reasoning, and it's like foundational to Daniel's Dawa.
It makes a lot of sense. That's very convincing.
The keys to Graceland. Like a remote.
That's a clarification that we need.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a very important
so
clarification,
we talked about this
and there are a couple
clarification
of distinctions
just now.
that have to be made. One is all of your examples from Christianity are from Old Testament law, which if you had studied Christianity, you would know there's no sect of Christianity, no school of Christian thought, no tradition within Christianity that holds that Old Testament law applies to Christians for all time. As a matter of
real
fact, it never
Christians.
did apply. Even in Judaism, after the destruction of the temple
fake
in 70
Christians. They're liberal
AD, the
Christians.
rabbis redefined Judaism so that even they don't teach that those punishments have ongoing validity. So you're talking
Well,
about
that
Let's
is
go and
because
pause it real quick.
Christianity was influenced by secular humanism, which controls everything,
And
which
so
is
is
why
Judaism.
you
Judaism is
are
also.
condemning your own religion now. You're condemning your own Bible now because of this evil of secular humanism. And the Jews are also doing the same thing. They are all adopting secular humanism and leaving their religions and adopting liberalism. And that is the problem. All of you should believe exactly what I believe. We should all kill apostates. Perfect
And-
response.
It's actually an important point that's being made here. Actually, maybe we should watch a little more and then
You talk too much.
come back to it. You talk too much.
Quiet, man.
about something that nobody in mainstream Judaism or Christianity thinks is valid today versus
Yeah, go
something-
ahead, pause it. Go ahead, pause it. I don't know if it's going to come up again, so I just want to say this real quick. Robert just pointed out that, like, notice, why don't even Jews carry out these penalties anymore? Is it have they just been infected by secular humanism and so on? Once you had all of this was connected to like temple worship and having priests and so on who are performing these ceremonies, and so everything was connected to this temple worship. Once that was destroyed, the system broke down, and Jews didn't believe, hey, we enforce this stuff anymore. We don't even have the system. We broke the covenant, and here's the situation that we're in, and the temple's been destroyed. Which is interesting because in a passage that you're familiar with, AP, when the Jews came to Muhammad to judge a dispute, and they weren't going to apply any sort of death penalty. Muhammad ordered that a death penalty be applied because of the Torah, when the Jews of his time would not have been enforcing these laws.
Yeah.
So notice it's even Jews, because the situation changed, we're not applying those anymore because they recognize, hey, this is part of an entire system, and that system has broken down. We don't apply those anymore. But then Daniel thinks that even Christians should apply it, and it's just, wait a minute. I mean, there were entire councils, and so it's in Acts 15 where they have a council. Hey, what are the Gentile believers under? How much of the law are the Gentile believers under? It doesn't give this long list of killing apostates and things like that. It was thought to not apply to us at all. Here we are 2,000 years later, and we're finding out from Daniel Hakikachu, who's obviously never even read the book, what real Christianity is and how shame on us. We don't listen to the apostles and what they concluded, what rules they concluded we're under. We listen to Daniel Hakikachu and Jake, the Muslim metaphysician.
This
That's a very long. That's a very long way of saying that you have been infected by secular humanism.
I just want Daniel to read 1
Woke
Corinthians
mind
7.
bias.
He should read 1 Corinthians 7, where it says literally that the husband's body belongs to the wife and the wife's body belongs to the husband. So, okay,
How
Secular
can
humanism.
how can my grown man's body belong to a 4-year-old girl? You're not making any sense.
Oh man.
think is valid today. And the bringing up of ancient historical wrongdoing is all very well, and there's certainly a place for that. I've got no interest in denying any of the misdeeds of Christians throughout history. But the problem that we have in Islam is that these passages of the Quran that are problematic, passages of Muhammad's traditions that are problematic, they are still considered to be in force by very large numbers of Muslims, such that all the major terrorist groups around the world are Islamic groups. And you don't have any Christian terrorist groups saying Jesus is Lord and blowing people up. There's a reason for that.
Because of
And
secular
religions have
humanism.
to do with
Humanism.
Because of secular
Been infected by your worm goop.
secular humanism infected Christianity. That's why there are no Christian terrorist groups in the world.
Christians in both religions.
Can I
Notice,
comment?
because they're going to completely derail it. Even though that's kind of Robert just brought up kind of the core issue here, namely, if you take the Bible, you read it from beginning to end. You read the Bible from beginning to end, and then you say, "Hey, I've entered into this covenant. What am I supposed to do now?" Killing apostates, slaughtering unbelievers in the name of Jesus. No, you don't get any of this. There's no way, unless you're absolutely insane, to read the text and conclude that that's what you're supposed to do. If you read the Muslim sources and say, "What am I supposed to do?" you start coming to some pretty clear conclusions. And so it's like, okay, we've got one ideology that calls for the violent subjugation of the world, and everyone, killing apostates, beating women into submission, and so on. And so why don't we focus on some of those issues if we're talking about building bridges? And the response is, but there were other rules 3,400 years ago, so we need to focus on that.
But which Bible, David? Which Bible? There are so many different Bibles. There's
72 Bibles.
There's
72 Bibles, like my
there's
72
King James
virgins.
version, New King James version. There's New American Standard Bible. There are so many different versions. Which Bible can you trust? Which Bible will you trust? They're all different.
Powerful.
Powerful.
Yeah, so I would ask Robert a very simple question that I think gets at what the real issue actually is. Do you believe that it's inherently
real issue.
immoral for an apostate to be put to death?
This is such a pretend big brain moment.
Yeah.
Typical thing that comes from somebody like Jake, Muslim metaphysician guy here, whose name already screams, "I want to be recognized as a deep thinker." Completely irrelevant discussion. This is like, when people talk about stuff like this, is what I think of is, I hear this from Muslims a lot. Like they say, "Oh, you are an atheist, so what is wrong in your worldview with killing apostates anyway? It can't be, good or bad. So who are you to judge?" And I'm just thinking here, you could come into my house and start stealing things and robbing me and go around, and when I turn on the light and confront you with a gun, you could tell me, "But hold on, wait a minute. Yes, I did break in, but what is in your worldview? What is wrong with this? It's not wrong or right. It's not bad or good." Before you finish your word, I will just shoot you. Because that's how that's how the real world works. That is how the real world works. You can talk as much as you want about the meta of why I find this bad or why I find this good, or if it is technically wrong in my worldview or technically right in my worldview. That's a discussion that you can have as long as you want. Meanwhile, I will shoot you because you just broke in and endangered my security and my safety, and tried to take things from me and gave me the right to defend myself, because that's what matters. And when we are now sitting here and we are having a discussion, and I am an ex-Muslim, and I say, "Hey, you know what? Your religion says I should be killed, and that's why I'm against Islam," then it doesn't matter whether you think we should focus on the inherent evil or good of killing apostates or not. What matters is that you want me, an apostate, killed, and I have a problem with this. Anyone want to add something?
Yeah, I would just say with regards to what he was saying there, like, is it inherently wrong? I mean, like, you're assuming a certain ethical standard. I would say that you could probably come up with circumstances where it could be moral, but I would just say in 99% of those instances, it isn't. So, like, you got to show me a scenario where it actually is, like, in a virtue ethical framework. You need to actually apply that kind of thing. It's like, is killing always wrong? Well, no. You just mentioned there's instances where killing can be morally permissible. So you got to look at this more from like a real world standpoint and see, like, is there any way in today's world where killing an apostate can be the moral thing to do. And I find a hard time finding an example. I mean, you could say maybe in the past when there were certain other circumstances, there may have been times where it could have been morally permissible based on the individuals involved, based on the environment, based on circumstances. Because that's just the way the virtue ethicist is going to think.
That's because you were infected by secular humanism.
Yeah, and this has actually come up before, the idea, hey, you object to this, therefore are you saying that there's no situation where that could ever apply? And yeah, like IP just pointed out, I mean, let me just give an example. So I condemn wife beating. In Islam, your wife gets out of line, you beat her into submission. You could beat her until her skin turns green. Don't worry, Muhammad will condemn your wife for being a bad wife, not you. So I can say, notice if I were talking to these guys and I would say, hey, you know, you shouldn't beat women or something like that. Don't beat women. But if you were to ask, hey, you're saying there's no situation, this is inherently wrong in every single situation. No, I can think of a situation where it would be relevant. My wife goes completely crazy. She pulls out a gun. She's about to massacre my kids or something like this. And the only way to stop her is to sort of knock her to the ground or something like that. I could come up with a situation where it's actually relevant. That has nothing to do with your guys' idea that, hey, you know, your wife messes up your falafel, you just, you know, beat her into submission.
Hey, this is funny. Somebody just noted that there's a Candace Owens.
I saw that 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, I didn't notice that until somebody pointed it out.
Jake probably requested that. She's like, "Yo, I want to sit by Candace Owens." Since she gave props to my main man Andrew Tate, the new hero of dyes everywhere.
This is probably, I don't know, this is haram. You can't sit next to Candace Owens.
I believe that it's inherently immoral for an apostate.
Is it inherently immoral?
Well, I know this is some kind of trap, but in any case,
no, I'm just looking for honesty on your part. That's all.
You can always have honesty on my part. Everything I tell you is the truth.
He said no, and then he actually did use it as a trap.
Okay. And the fact is that, I don't know. I tell you the truth, I haven't thought about it.
Okay,
but,
you haven't thought about it. Well, you're writing all these books on Islam, talking about
criticizing
apostasy,
Islam?
Right.
and you don't even know if this is inherently immoral. That's quite shocking,
no,
Robert.
I would say that I don't think that it's moral to put the apostate to death.
So it's
But
immoral.
as it comes to my books about Islam, I'm just reporting on what Islamic clerics and the Islamic tradition teaches about passages like when Muhammad says, if somebody changes his religion, kill him.
Yeah, go ahead and pause
So
it.
if you look, for example...
So hold on. He said, is it inherently immoral? Robert said, I know this is some kind of trap. Jake said, no,
this isn't something I planned.
No, I'm just honestly curious about your opinion. And then as soon as he says, I don't know, he's like, you don't know? And now he will get into the actual trap and use it. So he can't even have an honest discussion. Man.
Yeah. So and notice what they're saying. So he's asked, is it inherently wrong? Like, is this going to be wrong no matter what the situation is? And he's like, I haven't really thought about that. And they're like, but you write books talking about what Islam teaches on these issues, and that's kind of like me. Like when I'm criticizing Islam and when I'm pointing out that Islam calls for the violent subjugation of the world and killing apostates and wife beating and so on, most of that isn't Islam is false because of this. It's, hey, all you people out there keep saying this has nothing to do with Islam, and I'm showing you where it definitely has something to do with Islam. These are Islamic teachings. And so, as Robert pointed out, a big part of what he's done is just, guys, this stuff that everyone says has nothing to do with Islam. I can show you this stuff in the Muslim sources. And the main point is, stop saying that jihad has nothing to do with Islam. Stop saying that killing apostates has nothing to do with Islam. Stop saying that wife beating has nothing to do with Islam. Stop saying these things. These things are clearly part of Islam. And then it's but is it inherently wrong? Could there never be a situation where someone could be killed for being an apostate or something like that?
You're just emotional. You're just emotional.
You're emotional. You're emotional like Rashid.
If you're emotional and you're infected by secular humanism and liberalism.
In chapter 4, verse 89 of the Quran, in the critical Quran, where it says, if they turn renegade, then come and kill them wherever you find them, then I give Islamic authorities who actually say that this should be done. And that is something people need to know. Now, whether you're talking about in the ideal society, you have apostates put to death, I don't think so, because I believe in the freedom of conscience and the idea that of the dignity of the human person, which is a Christian concept. It's not in Islam.
Secular
You have in
humanism.
Islam, the unbelievers are the most vile of created
Secular
beings.
humanists put that in.
Chapter 98, verse 6,
One issue.
Yeah,
so on. No, this is all.
I still
let's
didn't
talk
get an
about
answer.
this.
I understand, but this
inherently
is all the
immoral?
same issue. Whereas in
Is it
Christianity,
inherently immoral?
all
Now
people
look,
are
notice what
dignity.
Robert was actually responding to. He clearly is talking about like now, because he's talking about like an ideal society. Even if you had an ideal society or something like this. So he's talking about like hypothetical, if you had this ideal society where like everything is known or something like that, and could you have rules like this? And he says, no, I don't think so. But yeah, we can tell that's not where these guys were going with that. They wanted him to say it's inherently wrong, so they can say, what about this Old Testament passage?
Yeah. So I thought it was not a trap. What happened?
made in the image of God, and so
It's a trap!
would say, no, I don't think it is.
So is it inherently immoral, yes or no?
Can I
Yeah.
answer that?
It is.
It is.
So when Deuteronomy, since you like to quote the Quran, when the Bible says this in Deuteronomy 13:6, if your brother, the son of your mother, your son of your daughter, the wife of your bosom, or your friend, who as your own soul secretly entices you, saying, quote, let us go and serve other gods, which you have not known, neither you nor...
Why is he so mad?
This is not an apostasy passage, though. Again, because this is applying modern concepts of religion out of the past. This Israelite in this situation, if you read the commentaries, would not be someone who's going to stop worshiping Yahweh. It's going to be someone who's going to say, let's worship other gods alongside Yahweh. Because that's what happened in that ancient culture. There was no concept of religions. You could worship, if you were like living in Mesopotamia, you could worship Ishtar. If you went to Egypt, you could sacrifice to Amun-Ra and then go back and worship Ishtar. That was just this way they sort of operate in the world. What is going on in this Deuteronomy passage is you have an Israelite saying, let us worship and sacrifice to these other gods. But they're not saying abandon the worship of Yahweh. It's actually more like we're referring to idol worship, not apostasy. Because again, that wasn't really a concept in the ancient world. So this is, again, it's just completely misunderstanding the passage. They need to read Old Testament scholars like John Walton, who I mentioned, Michael Lefebvre. I mean, there's so many scholars that have covered this kind of stuff.
And again, notice the difference, because again, Robert, when he says inherently wrong or inherently immoral, he's thinking of the future, like establishing a state. Is this immoral in this state to kill apostates? And he says, yes, I think it would be immoral to kill apostates. They swing back to the Old Testament. Again, notice, and Robert goes through to point out some of the differences here. Again, you could discuss the ethics even of this, but there is just a massive difference when you have this like set of miracles, like going through the Red Sea and pillar of fire guiding you, and pillar of cloud guiding you, and then gives you rules, and then very clearly says, oh, and by the way, do not set up some idols and so on. And then you go ahead and do it anyway. That is a notice. That is a unique situation. Humanity is normally not in that situation where you have absolute, just clear proof this is divine origin, and therefore you are any sort of disagreement, it's clear what you're disobeying.
Indeed.
That is just not the situation that Islam has ever been in.
Hey, David, AP, I gotta sign off here because I gotta go eat dinner. But one more thing to add is, as I've said, this is wisdom literature. These are not laws, and you can see this in Judges 2, where Israel starts worshiping other gods, and the angel of the Lord shows up. He doesn't say, "I'm going to kill you all," because that's the rule. No, he just says, "You're not going to have my protection anymore. I'm going to let the Canaanites oppress you," this kind of thing. Because again, what you're reading in Deuteronomy is wisdom literature that's teaching judicial wisdom. Scholars like Raymond Westbrook, Dilbert Hillers have been noting for years. So again, we're taking modern standards, Islamic standards, applying to the Testament law, not looking at it in a scholarly way. So
And
I
by
gotta
the way,
take off because we're gonna eat dinner.
One last thing, IP. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but I've also read that some scholars believe there was a ransom system in Old Testament times where people are basically regularly doing stuff that that they are told is an official death penalty, and you would pay a ransom for it, right? So you're regularly doing things where, darn it, I did this, I'm under a death penalty again. Okay, you're under a death sentence, and then you pay your ransom, which is getting out of the system, but there are reasons for that, like in the passage about capital punishment, actually punishing people for deliberately murdering another people. It specifically says, and for this do not accept ransom. So you have all these death penalties, and then for capital murder, where you're deliberately, knowingly, first degree murdering somebody, then there's a death penalty. It says, for this do not take ransom. And so the idea is that people were in all these kinds of situations where you're you did this, therefore, there's the punishment, so pay your ransom, and then you don't actually die. So there are some understandings which
this is all
even the Old
humanism.
Testament. There are some views that even under the Old Testament system that these guys are condemning, even then it's not what they're representing it as.
Hey, I like your dog.
Oh yeah, this is Loki, and this is Thor's over here drinking water.
Thor and Loki.
Those are the names. of
How
them.
creative.
That's nice.
They were rescued, so they came with the names.
Oh, okay, that's nice.
So, all right, I'm gonna take off, guys. I'll see you guys next time.
Okay.
Get black dogs next time.
Get out of there.
That's how I will say bye.
It sucks. I've got mine too. I just haven't set it up yet.
From now
But
on,
we're gonna have dueling sound effects. He's gonna have his. I'm gonna have completely different sound effects. Although we'll probably both have. We're proud of that because it'd just be awesome going back and forth. Proud of that.
If somebody talks too much for too long, I will do this.
Quiet, man.
I will do that from now on. When somebody's leaving, I'll do it.
Get the hell out of there.
I'll do that. I need to work on these. I don't know. What are you gonna do tonight?
You're sitting there watching Netflix.
Anyway, let's continue.
Your fathers of the gods of the people which are all around you, near to you or far from you, from one
mad.
end of the earth to
He's
the
so
other end
mad.
of the earth. You shall not consent to him or listen to him, nor shall your eye pity him, nor shall you spare him or conceal him. To
proud of
each wickedness, loving God, Jesus Christ, who you believe is God, who revealed the Old Testament and revealed this as a law for the people. And you said that it's inherently immoral for the punishment of apostasy to be death. Then you are charging your own God and supposedly loving Jesus with immorality.
Not
sir.
at all.
If you don't see that contradiction and hypocrisy,
It's not in the
it can't
least.
really do much for you.
Well, it's not in the least contradictory or hypocritical because that is God actually ordering.
I just can't look past the fact that what is actually going on here and what Jake is actually doing here is not arguing about Christian law or Jewish law or whatever it is. What he's actually under the surface of it all trying to say is, so why do you think what we are doing or what we want is evil? It's not evil. He just wants it to be accepted as not evil. Yes, we do believe apostates should be killed, and there is nothing wrong with that. That's the
notice
whole
how
point.
because there is an issue of consistency. So Jake and Daniel, that is a relevant issue to bring up. Like if you say, hey, there's no circumstances where this should ever be allowed, and you believe that has been, you believe in a scripture that says that was allowed, then there are further questions that come up. So if you're saying it's wrong, why was it okay then? Or are you interpreting that passage somehow differently from the way it sounds to the rest of us? If so, please explain. So that there's a degree of relevance in terms of consistency, but still, you're missing all of this is to distract from the overwhelmingly important point, which is these guys are trying to build a state where these other guys are dead, and these other guys, for the crime of saying we don't want to be killed, they're labeled Islamophobes and so on, and they're blasted and so on. So you've got one group that's trying to impose this stuff, and anyone who objects to it, it's but don't you believe that 3,400 years ago this happened? And like, okay, yeah, and you're trying to build a state right now where I'm killed. You're trying to establish a state right now where I am killed, and you have acknowledged that. Can we please deal with that issue?
Yeah, so Daniel Kikachu says, so what about the Jews? Again, this is the issue here.
About the Jews.
You say, what about the Jews? The problem here is that you guys are the ones. You don't seem to understand the history of the development of all of these laws, right? If you have a problem with the development of it, if you don't understand it, maybe we should go sit down and try to understand and study it, and try to understand why Jews do not apply these laws. Try to understand why Christians never did apply these laws. Maybe try to understand these things. Because that seems to be your actual problem. The issue here is that you guys sit down here and advocate for apostasy laws, advocate for killing the guy who is sitting
in the world today,
who is sitting on the opposite side of that round table that is meant to be made for building bridges. In fact, you know what? I want to question your integrity here and your consistency. You absolute weasels, both of you. You agree, Daniel and Jake, you agree and go on a show with PBD where the declared purpose is to build bridges, but you don't want to build bridges. You don't believe in building bridges. You believe in killing your opponent, and you want to justify that. So wouldn't it be the consistent thing to do for you guys to say, hey, you know what, we are actually not the right guys, not the ones that you're looking for, because we don't want to build bridges. We want to execute those who leave our religion. We want to execute those who disrespect our religion. We can't build bridges. Building bridges is against our religion. Shouldn't that be the consistent, the right, the honest thing to do? Shouldn't that be the right thing to do? That would be the consistent thing to do. Why can't you be honest to yourselves? Why can't you be honest to the audiences? Why can't you be honest to the host here? Tell them, we are not here to build bridges. We are here to chop off heads. We are here to kill people. We are here to massacre populations. We are here to enslave you all. We are not the right guys for building bridges. That's what you should be doing. But you are cowards. You are cowards. You don't tell people what you actually think. You want to sneak and want to go on that stage and act like it is the opponent that is actually guilty. You are acting like it is the opponent who is the problem. It is the opponent who is hateful. While you come there with the entire purpose of justifying murdering others in the name of your religion. You are bastards. That's what you guys are.
Hey!
Sorry.
Some of these mean comments, man. All they want is for you to be murdered. Why are you so against them all the time?
I'm so emotional just because I want to be murdered. I'm sorry. I should grow up and be more serious here.
Something
Was
directly.
God wrong for that?
Now, the question here is whether the Muslims, when they put people to death for apostasy today, are likewise authorized by God in some direct manner. Now, obviously,
that's what matters.
yes, the question is...
And it's not inherently immoral. It just matters what is the correct religion and whether or not God is actually...
It's clear they were talking about two different things.
You will actually...
Yeah, completely. And really, these guys need to sit down and just try to understand religion. Try to understand
if you ask me, my view is God. If God wanted to, God could wipe us out. Right? God could wipe us out.
I heard you say that so many times.
Over and over again. Do I believe that people like Jake and Daniel Kikachu should be running around saying they're going to kill people for leaving the religion of the most obvious false prophet in history? Notice, if Jake showed up and the Almighty was standing beside him and said, hey, you better do this or else, and you said, I don't care what you say, Almighty, that would be kind of a different story. The point is, they're not in that situation. Other people were, so there's really no comparison between the situation. Again, you could object to both situations, but stop acting like you're in the same situation.
Yeah, Jake, nobody gives a crap about the meta of why it is wrong, or whether it is wrong or not to kill apostates. What matters to people here, clearly, like nobody wants to sit down and go through understanding. So why exactly is it wrong to murder people? Why exactly is it even wrong to murder people? No, what we're talking about is you want to murder people. You want to do that. And we have established societies, established morals, established laws, established reasoning, where we have established, you know what, we don't want to be killed for leaving the religion. We have established that. I don't want to talk with you about why it is wrong for you to have me killed for leaving my religion. We don't want to talk about that, right? We don't want to talk about that, not because it is absolutely unreasonable, but because it doesn't matter at all, and you are in no position to talk about this. What matters is that you want me killed, and that is what matters. Now shut up and just answer the question, and if we do conclude that you do indeed want me executed, then we are done here. We're done building bridges. In fact, maybe you should be consistent. You should kick yourself out of this country. So easy.
Let me hear from brother.
These people are such hypocrites, right? Islamists are giant hypocrites.
Chief, for one brother, go for it. What's on your mind?
Because this concerns me. Do you believe I should be put to death?
Here
I believe that the punishment for apostasy in a correct Islamic state is death. I believe that.
You see how these supposedly honest Islamists here don't even have the proper courage to give a straight answer. They have to give lengthy answers, make it vague. Just answer the damn question.
The punishment for apostasy in a correct Islamic state is death. I believe that that's the correct. You finish. Let me just respond, sir. I believe that that is the correct punishment, which has been revealed by God, both in the Quran and the Bible. And for Robert to turn around,
I asked you.
Let me finish.
I asked you to believe I should be killed today.
And I answered you, sir.
Yes or no?
I answered you.
Yes or no?
I answered you.
Should I answer? You want me to answer?
I said.
Yeah, you answered.
In a proper Islamic jurisprudent jurisdiction, an Islamic nation, all of the laws of Islam and the Sharia, as revealed by God, should be applied.
So if we were in that kind of state, would you do it?
Including
I'm not the one that
with
executes
proper due process, with a proper hearing, just like any nation of laws, the laws of the Sharia should be applied, including.
So what if I sat down here now and said, hey, you know what, guys? I think all Muslims should get the same treatment that Islam applies to those who leave Islam, because Islam is inherently wrong, because Islam destabilizes society. So it's obviously a problem. It's obviously a problem. So let's apply the same thing. Let's be consistent from our perspective. Islam destabilizes society, makes things bad. So, we should apply that very same law to Muslims. How would that be? Would you guys think? Would you guys be like, oh no, I disagree with that, or would you guys become emotional?
You don't even have to go all the way there. I mean, just think about it. I mean, in France, if they say you can't wear a burqa to school or something like this, these guys lose their minds. And I've pointed out,
Islamophobia.
I'm to some degree, I'm not crazy about governments telling people what to wear and so on. But I mean, think about this. They complain, how dare you oppress us like this? Like, wait, you're saying kill people for making their choices. You're saying, hey, you shouldn't interfere with this woman's choice to wear a burqa. You shouldn't interfere with that. The government should not interfere with that. And you're like, no, we want the government to murder people for recognizing that Muhammad is a false prophet. Very strange.
And this is where I don't know. This is where I guess I would expect Patrick with David to stop and think, oh, something went here really wrong with the planning, because obviously you can't build bridges like that. Yeah, I mean, he said he didn't have a discussion with these guys beforehand, so he was probably like, wait a minute, these guys are saying these other guys have to die? What? I was planning on talking about building bridges against trans stuff. But anyway, let's talk about all the stuff.
These guys want to murder stuff. Let's talk about Dylan Mulvaney, please.
The death penalty for not only apostates but also blasphemers.
You didn't
so
answer.
that's Robert. So that's Robert.
You didn't.
Yes, we didn't.
Yeah, so I should be killed.
We did answer.
I
your question.
deserve to be killed because I left Islam and became a Christian.
According to Islamic law, an apostate like you would be killed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And according
Okay,
to the
let me. This is a
And a
fallacy.
blasphemer.
This is a fallacy.
Robert,
Too
that's-
cocky. Like you want to say
not a
you have
fallacy.
it too. It's a fallacy.
No.
Let us discuss this because
Why is it a fallacy?
it's a fallacy.
It's
let me
showing-
let,
it's
let me
showing your
finish. Let me
hypocrisy.
finish. Let me finish.
Please condemn Jesus.
Yeah.
please.
Oh, you think you should?
Condemn Jesus.
Robert already
Okay. Let,
You see how in the comment section the Muslims act like the Christians were not being nice, not composed, and the Muslims were very respectful, very good, and all of that. But as soon as the other side gets the word, the Muslims start acting like this. The guy said barely a few words.
let,
No,
let me,
you're lying.
Let me
Let's
finish.
be on
let me
record
finish.
saying you're lying
Let,
about that.
let me finish.
That's what happened.
Let's-
You said
let's-
eventually
you
we realized
convert-
you
You're
Just
lying.
let me finish. You
Let's hear
converted.
Brother
You,
Rashid, and then I'll come to you. Go for it.
you converted from Christianity to Islam. Your life is not under threat here in the U.S. I converted from Islam to Christianity. My life is under debt. That's the difference between Christianity and Islam.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Yes.
I got a question for you guys. I'm a data guy. I'm a finance guy. How many Christians have died going from being Christian to Muslim? How many Muslims have actually been killed or died going from being a Muslim to a Christian?
There's no data on that because these kinds of things are not recorded. They're not considered crime.
There should be,
in
though, right? I
Islam.
mean, shouldn't there even if there's some stories to be able to say,
Yeah.
you know, X, Y, Z individual.
I have stories. I have one in Mauritania who was condemned to be executed. We just got him out to Paris because we negotiated with the government there. I have people.
I mean, this is the whole situation is absurd. I would expect in this situation the host to turn it on and be like, so hold on, do you guys actually believe that this guy should be executed? That you want to sit down here and talk and have a discussion about
And, and
finding
Daniel,
common ground.
Daniel pointed out that Robert is on the list too. He said also for blasphemy.
Yeah, both of you, by the way, both of you should be killed. But anyway, so let's talk about
Yes,
what we have
you
in common.
you guys are both under a death sentence as soon as we establish our Sharia compliant hellhole. Now, the real question is, why are you guys so against us establishing a Sharia compliant hellhole? We can't figure this out. Why are you guys against this stuff?
But anyway,
We don't get
anyway,
it. We're gonna kill
anyway.
you. We're gonna kill you. But why would you say anything against it?
But anyway, let's talk about the LGBTQ agenda now.
Let's focus on Dylan Mulvaney.
Right now in Libya, they are under death penalty in Libya. I have people who got killed in Jordan, for example, because I do my show, people contact me. I have people who got killed in Jordan. Their parents killed them because they became Christians from a Muslim background.
Look, he's so emotional. So emotional. That's what they say.
We have people in different places in the world. In the Muslim community, they kill them, and if they get to flee, that's the best outcome.
I got a question. While I'm studying this, there's also, Daniel said something very interesting where the guidelines of Quran is based on the jurisdiction of the government, meaning where you live, the religion is follow whatever the laws are of that nation, meaning you can...
That's actually not what he said at all. I don't know how he came to that. I just want to take a clip here.
Yeah, to be clear, they are saying that, in order to, it's the same position of Ali Dawa, that once you get your Islamic State, then you enforce Sharia. It would have been an interesting question to ask them, well, what about, when Robert has a cartoon contest, do you think there's ever a situation where you murder these people in a non-Islamic country? Like, do you think there's a situation where you gun down cartoonists or something like that? Because I'd be interested in seeing what they say. Like everything they say, when you ask about these laws, they say, that's for an Islamic State. But Muhammad certainly allowed some of this stuff to be carried out not in an Islamic State. So I wonder what they think.
Daniel Kinkic said 500,000 dead Iraqi children before 9/11, all in the name of secular liberalism. Stop being emotional.
Yeah, can you imagine if I was Daniel Hakikic and I'd be
Stop
going,
being emotional.
oh, poor 500,000 dead children. That's how he would respond.
Yeah.
If
Isn't this how you
were
guys? Isn't this how you guys react? Isn't this how you guys react to oppression, to blood, to stuff like that when the other side complains, when the other side points out that Muslims, that Islamists are oppressive, that Islam is oppressive, don't you guys say, oh, only emotions, no argument at all, stop being emotional arguments? Why do you then mention these things? Stop being emotional. Do you want consistency, or do you want to sit down and actually talk about the value of human lives?
Liberal secularism. What is
Hey,
liberal
yo.
secularism? Is this philosophy that came out of the Enlightenment, out of the 18th and 19th?
What?
How much longer are you planning on going? Because I might
Not-
need to go check something real quick, then come back.
Not too much. I'm looking for a thing. You can just go and come back.
Okay, I'll go check and see.
Yeah.
Livelihoods are threatened. I get death threats all the time. Almost every day I'm getting
he
a death
gets
threat.
death threats all
because
the
of my
time.
opposition to
Yeah,
this
I believe
hegemony, liberal secularism. There is no
Shut up. I don't believe that for a second. Share with me the evidence. Please share with me the evidence. Send me the death threats. Show me that people are actually threatening you, sending you death threats because you speak against secular liberalism. You have to be kidding me. You can't make up a more pathetic, more obvious fake story. People are threatening you because you speak against liberalism.
quote unquote freedom of, and I know you Jones, they talk about this system. They might not put it in the same exact way that I'm putting it, but it is this authoritarian central. What was the Iraq War about? What was the fiction? Liberal values and quote unquote women's rights. That's what millions of Muslims in the past 20 years have been killed for, slaughtered.
Stop being emotional.
You and I are completely in agreement. We're both against.
Only emotional, like only emotions, no argument at all. So,
Mostly
baby.
from Andre Carson, the publicly Muslim, Quran adherent politicians, and yet they're all very far on the left, and they're aiding.
Okay.
One of them, she was 9 years old. He was 53. I am 51.
Oh, here. This is
When I studied the life of Muhammad, in 10 years, he waged 83 wars. In 10 years, 27 wars and 56 raids. In 10 years. And you are going to teach me that Islam is peaceful? No, it's not peaceful. Are you going to give a Nobel Prize for somebody who waged 83 wars? No, you will not. And another thing, Muhammad is not a role model. Jesus is. Muhammad, he had many wives, 11 of them. One of them, she was 9 years old. He was 53. I am 50. I cannot marry a girl that has 9 years old. You cannot. That's abuse. And Muhammad did that.
Can we do
so
one
many things.
issue at a
Let me
time?
let
One
me
issue
let
at
me
a time?
finish this. He raided a Jewish tribe. He killed the whole.
I wish the whole issue of child marriage was more highlighted. I feel like that was missed. But I wish they had pressed Daniel Kikichu more on highlighting, on talking about child marriage, because it would be very nice. It would have been very nice to see Daniel talk about whether it's okay to marry little children or not. That would have gone over very, very well with the audience. Of course, you wouldn't see that in the comment section or anything, because that's where the Muslims spam the comment section to make it look like everybody loves the Muslims. But I wish the audience had heard that. That would have been good. That would have been good. But because of that, we just have to highlight all of the times that Daniel Kikic did mention it. The times when Michael had a debate with him and made him look like a crazy lunatic and pedophile. Yeah, I was just talking about pedophiles too.
family.
Shocker. Surprised you weren't talking about incest. But hey, we got a nurse downstairs, so I'm good to go. We could go all night, baby.
Oh yeah.
Called Sophia, and he took her as a wife the same time he was returning to Medina. Would you put that as a role model for me today in the 21st century? He had another wife called Rihanna. My daughter, her name is Rihanna. I named her specifically for that. He took a Jewish wife.
So he's too emotional. He's emotional. He's supposed to just say, Oh yes, I respect my opponent's belief that I should be killed, and marrying little children and raping them is a perfect system, and beating wives and all of it. That's a perfect system. I disagree with that, but let us find common ground. That's what he's supposed to say.
Killing his own wife just because she criticized Muhammad. So these are the rules that they want to apply today. If we criticize Muhammad, we should be killed. Like what happened with Charlie Hebdo. Do you think those people, they just killed the people who drew the caricature for...
What is this? What is this profile?
People are funny, man.
Strap-on
hey,
pleasure machine
hey,
said-
you've got to get strap-on pleasure machine as you've got to get the quote from Daniel to put on your little little audio device there.
I do. I have to do that.
I still have to go look at the clip where he said it.
Strap-on pleasure machine said, "Ha, you see what kind of a man is emotional."
Like, what is it about where these guys? Again, I don't even know the context of what in the world he's talking about, apart from hearing it from you guys. But I mean, have you noticed where their minds go?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, his whole idea was,
golden showers, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, strap-on pleasure machine. Ah. My
He
goodness,
wrote this
like,
whole
like they're
story down.
preparing for Jenna.
he wrote this whole story down of, let us do a
Once upon a
thought
time,
experiment.
there was a strap-on pleasure machine.
But he was like a thought experiment. There is a machine, or there is a company named Pleasure Inc., and they invent a machine named the Pleasure Machine, and they give out the Pleasure Machine to people, and as soon as you put on the Pleasure Machine, as soon as you strap it on, you experience endless pleasure, all of the pleasures, available to you, pleasures like you've never felt them before. It sounds like he's advertising some sex toys or something. I don't know. And
Hey, maybe he's going to be advertising Ali Dawa's what was Ali Dawa? The orgasm intensifiers that he was selling on his channel. So Daniel's got his strap-on pleasure machine. Got Muhammad Hijab with his golden showers and so on, and Ali Dawa with his orgasm intensifiers. These are guys lecturing us on pretty much everything.
they should be coming together and working toward a science to bring humanity closer to the sexual strength of Muhammad. And
Matter of fact, that would be the perfect advertisement. We should do that. We should advertise Ali Dawa's pills and say, "Do you want to have the sexual strength of 30 men, just like Muhammad? Uh-huh. Hey, did you only get through 3 of your wives, and then you want to get through 9 or 11 like Prophet Muhammad?"
Addison Weir said, "Is IP going to debate Muhammad Hijab?" I hope he does, because that would be entertaining.
He'd be
Maybe as
happy to.
entertaining as a debate with Najima. Not sure if that would actually happen, but I don't know. Muhammad Hijab doesn't really do debates where he doesn't control the room, and I doubt that anyone who knows him by now would give him the advantage of actually going to a Muslim organized debate or anything. He's a coward. He's scared. Scared. Oh, I didn't put that on. Oh. Scared.
You're finished already. Look at me. Look at me. You know you're done.
Okay. Royal Castrator said, "Where's the pleasure machine when you need it?" Mattis Lizard said, "Hi, David."
Hey, Mathis.
What do you mean, hey?
Hey. Hi.
You actually say hi to me.
It's like saying I'm only 5% pregnant.
Yeah, like the.
Muhammad just because like that? No, because it's written in Islam that they should kill people who criticize Muhammad. So Islam is a big problem. Even the 5% can kill whole humanity.
5% pleasure, 50% pain, and 100% reason to remember the name Daniel. And
remark
Jake.
about us endorsing the punishment for apostasy. Yes, we do. Why? Because our claim is that we are actually faithful to our scriptures. You guys are not. You want to avoid the Old Testament, and I want to give you an analogy.
Isn't that interesting? When we actually obey the commands of the covenant that we're under, we're not being faithful to our scriptures that command us to do those things. What we're supposed to do is to look at all the commands that are directed towards us as part of our covenant, and then say, you know what? Heck with those. Let's go to the commands of this other covenant and live by those. That's what these guys are saying real Christianity is. And it's funny because I mean their fans don't realize it because their fans know even less about
They're
Christianity
stupid
than
and
what they're saying.
ignorant.
So they sound like they're educating everyone on what Christianity teaches, and to everyone who has a basic understanding of Christianity, they sound like idiots when they're saying this stuff.
I mean, this is what is crazy to me. Daniel Kikichu looks like he has never actually read the New Testament. He doesn't understand Christian history at all. The average Muslim doesn't understand anything. The average Muslim, it is probably very hard for the average Christian or for the average Western person to understand just how ignorant the average Muslim is when it comes to Christianity or other religions in general, Abrahamic religion in general. But Jake here, Jake is supposed to be a former Catholic who is supposed to have somewhat of an understanding, or who's supposed to deeply understand Christianity. And yet he repeats the very, very same extremely ignorant narrative that the average Muslim comes with. And I don't understand that. It's like, did he never learn about the history of Christianity? Did he never learn about the New Testament? Did he never learn about
This is
how
this is
Christianity
like
was practiced and applied?
this is like
or is he
as
just
basic.
yeah?
This is
or-
like as basic as you can possibly be, and they either don't know the most basics of the basics, or they do and they're just lying about it.
and this is the issue. Like, I know Jake will see this. He likes to watch when people talk about him, and he might even message me in a while. But I genuinely want to ask him the question, Jake, are you really presenting this question, which is very, very basic and very ignorant, because you don't know? Or are you somehow adopting common Muslim talking points for some ulterior motives out of dishonesty? I'm really trying to understand, because the average person who is knowledgeable on Christianity and Christian history, no matter if you agree with Christianity or not, would not say, oh, you guys are not faithful to your Christian scriptures, because otherwise you would be executing apostates too. That's idiotic. That's extremely idiotic.
Hey, let me tell you what a generous person I am. Jake, since you're going to be watching this, I believe we're going live on my channel tomorrow night to go through some of what you said and to show that one thing Robert said that I've seen people upset about. He's actually got a very important point. But Jake, if you want to come on, join with us and go through that with us, you are welcome to join tomorrow.
Yeah.
Be very, very simple.
I feel like, looking at what he just said, Jake's understanding of Christianity from his past Catholic life is similar to Sneeko's understanding of Christianity in his
Yeah,
former
it does seem like that. And it's just amazing that we've pointed it out a million times before. It's, oh, you say you're an ex-Muslim? Well, recite these 57 surahs then. 15 years after you converted. Waiting. Haha. But yeah, their converts are like Sneeko and
Yeah, if we made, I mean, if I as an ex-Muslim made such a blunder about Islam, the Muslims, the Islamists would be all over it, would be mocking me to no end. But the Muslim converts here can just make such ignorant statements about Christianity and act like they are scholars. It's
Wait,
amazing.
you're saying Abu Gharib? You're saying is Daniel? That's his other account.
I saw him somewhere else on a different account go and defend Daniel Kikichu very, very. I can't be sure that it's actually him, but I know that he cares a lot about his reputation.
Yeah, because if so, this is stupid stuff. So Abu Gharib says David should know hijab exposed his lack of Arabic in the debate years ago. That was the one where I said, hey, the Quran says that Allah prays for Muhammad, and hijab said, haha, I'll have to give you an education in Arabic, haha, free education.
Yeah.
It doesn't say he prays to Muhammad. It says he prays for Muhammad, which is exactly what I said. And this was my amazing Arabic education. So yeah, but Muhammad Hijab agreeing with me and saying I'm right is my amazing reputation.
Let me apply some Daniel Kikichu logic here. Abu Gharib said, I'm not. That clearly shows that he has a problem with what we're saying, and it clearly shows that he's trying to give us the impression that he's not Daniel, which means that he is not.
Howard.
So, Howard.
And you have policies that you have to put in place based on social interaction in the workplace and all that kind of
Robert
stuff.
Price,
Now, you
what?
make amendments to those policies.
TK89 said Robert Price, please book him.
He went off the deep end, man.
Woodlands. I saw it just the last time I saw him was. This guy was here last night too. He kept telling me about Robert Price. Last time I saw him, he said some really messed up things, and
Yeah,
I
I've heard
not-
from I heard from someone who did some shows with him that he went off the deep end. So Robert Price is kind of a Jesus myther. A bunch of the stuff is all fabricated. Can't even know if he existed or something like that. I'm not sure what his position turned into, but yeah, that guy went on. He was a nice guy the one time I met him, but apparently he went off the deep end on a lot of recent issues to the point where even atheists were like, we can't have anything to do with this guy.
He was on Derek's show, Myth Vision. He was there regularly, and he actually had a friendship with him. You know, like Robert Price and Derek became friends and were doing shows regularly. But after a few things, Derek had to tell him, Robert, I'm sorry, but you can't come on the show. I simply can't do this as much as I value our friendship. The things that you say, I can't have them on my show, because there were some really extreme, really messed up stuff about protesters, about shooting protesters, and some really, really messed up, old-time racist stuff. I don't know. Anyway,
like Kenny Bomer saying he's gonna pull off his belt and lash that black dude who told him to respect women.
yeah. I think Derek even gave Robert the chance to just come on an episode, like instead of canceling him, and just to explain himself and clarify things. And then he made it even worse. He said even more messed up things, and he was like, I tried everything. I'm sorry, I can't have you on here anymore. So that's all I know about Robert Price.
Based on new data, new information, how things are actually going based on those things that you put in place. Now, when you do, right, and this is the analogy between the Old Testament and the New Testament, are you willing to say that, well, yeah, thinking to myself, yeah, Pat, yeah, you were wrong, actually, when you said it was okay to do such and such. That was actually wrong, and you then put in the correct one. With the Bible, the problem that you have is the same one that you want to talk about, the loving Jesus Christ himself, which we also adore.
Oh, same point over and over and over again. This guy never will understand.
Listing every grievance that he has against Islam. We have to take it step by step. But just on this point of violence, I think Jake makes really the crucial point. It's that Jesus, according to the Christian belief, Jesus is the God of the Old Testament. And he's the one who's commanding Moses, for example.
Okay, point taken. Thank you so much. So, anyway, you guys want to kill apostates, right? Yes, okay, fine. We can't have that. Thanks.
Yeah, and think about this, because I mean, I can't tell if they're really this stupid or if they're just being deceptive, right? So you believe that Jesus is the triune God who revealed the Old Testament, but then you believe that triune God brought about a new covenant and gave you sets of rules for that new covenant. Therefore, you're under the rules of the old covenant. It's like insane to think that way, and that's what they're saying. Since you believe that this was revealed for a time and a place, therefore you have to agree with us that this is the rule for all time. It's like, that's insane. I mean, I've never heard a person besides you guys and Dawa guys reason like that. It sounds ridiculous. But again, their followers don't know any better, so I'll just keep cheering them on. Hey, look, he's right beside Alex Jones.
If that makes sense.
That's a good.
No offense.
How awesome would a show be with Daniel Hakikachu and Alex Jones? That'd be awesome.
As much as Alex Jones is crazy and says some really messed up and nutty things, I have to respect Alex Jones here that much. And I don't believe that Alex Jones is somebody who advocates for, killing entire populations and waging war and taking slaves. So yeah, probably an unfair comparison here. I'm sorry. Terrible.
They do have a similar lack of sympathy for. I mean, Alex Jones, when all those kids were shot up, he ended up. That was extremely. That was one of the messed
That
up.
was
most
messed up.
things ever. Yeah, like oh,
That-
this is all a big. This is all a big plot to take away your guns, and it's all staged, and all these parents are actors and stuff, and then all his fans go after the parents and start harassing. Ah, you liars, you're actors, blah 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 blah. It's pretty messed up.
That's
but
messed
notice
up.
it's very parallel to Daniel. Like he would not have any
Yeah.
concern for the parents there.
It's like there are people who still defend him over that, but I feel like, I mean, like the guy, hate the guy, but man, imagine you send your child to school and your child gets brutally shot and killed in a shooting, and then there's this guy going on his show and telling millions of people, hey, you know what, that's all, that was all staged, it was all a plot just to take your guns away. Imagine how you would feel.
Yeah. And especially all the comments, show us the pictures of your child's dead body, or we don't believe it happened. Why aren't they showing the pictures? Why aren't the media showing the pictures? Yeah, it was kind of off topic.
Yeah. Anyway, that was really interesting.
To ethnically cleanse the Canaanites or the Amalekites or all of these other tribes, and to conduct conquest and war, to take girls as slaves, to take virgins as slaves. This is in the Old Testament, sure. So Christians have to deal with that moral problem. A lot of Christians, unfortunately, they just throw the Bible under the bus. And, how is that?
Yeah, maybe you should go and understand. Maybe you should take some basic religion courses. I mean, go to college. Take those courses.
I mean, it is interesting, the methodology that you're a Dawa guy, you've got your Dawa followers, and they don't know any better, so you can just say whatever you want, and they'll think that you're the expert. And you could be spouting. You could pick any religion. Like Daniel could go in and talk about Hinduism, know absolutely nothing about Hinduism, just keep talking about Hinduism, and his fans would think that he's this champion of reason and so on. It's weird.
Yeah,
It's a weird situation. That was weird.
Rashid and Robert being called fake Christians were Islamophobes under the comments on that video. This being said by a so-called Christian, unreal world we live in, said Snipe.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, by the way, Snipe. But this is really, I mean, if you go into the comment section, that is basically the gist of what people, of what Muslims, not people, of what Muslims
Yeah, so
are
the
saying.
real Christians are the ones who ignore the commands of their covenant and go with the rules for the children of Israel and apply them to now. Those are the real Christians, and
Daniel exposed these liberal Christians. They are liberal Christians, they're not
by
real
defending
Christians.
traditional Christianity.
Traditional Christianity. Liberal Christians are those who follow their actual religion. Those who follow the New Testament, those who follow the Christian morality as it has been for a very, very long time. They are not real Christians, they are liberal Christians. Traditional Christians disregard all of Christianity and follow exactly what we want them to follow. That's how you guys sound outsiders. Idiots.
That was rude.
I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I can sit here and say, you guys sound like complete idiots. You guys are stupid, ignorant. But then can I really blame them? Like, they don't know. Because when you grow as a plant in Islam, you take in only the amount of knowledge that Islam gives you, which is not a very big amount of knowledge. It's very little water that you grow with as a plant in Islam. And with that, you are then trying to show your knowledge and your virtues to the world, and it looks ridiculous because in the rest of the world, people get a lot of water and a lot of knowledge which they acquired over the years. Because Muslims only have the Quran, and they don't have the Bible, they don't have the biblical history, they don't have anything. They don't have access to that. They are basically blocked from reading the Bible, from learning more about the Abrahamic religion, from learning about other religions. All they have is this tiny book here called the Quran, which misses basically everything that almost everything that is there in the biblical history. And then they try to come and have a discussion about Christianity, about what Christianity actually is, about how Christians are actually supposed to act. And they look ridiculous. And can you really blame them? I don't know. That's the problem. The Real Masker said, how dare they ban burqa? How dare they criticize Islam not wanting girls to study, aka reject Western pleasure regime? Now where is my 5-year-old wife? That's
Perfectly functional moral compass.
yeah, perfect. And also don't say the F word while I want to execute you.
Yeah. Sex with 4-year-old, 5-year-old, that's all good. F bombs, no. That's the line that must not be crossed.
I am done. You will not say the F word to me. I will have you executed because you blaspheme and you leave my religion, but do not say the F word. I will not tolerate this perversion, this transgression. Right Allah said Daniel Hakid a Jew. He's so
That kid, that's you.
yeah.
So in the book of Revelation. So Jesus is also very violent. And then finally, you have canon law. You have the church tradition. So if Robert wants to denounce canon law, because when you have canon law, it has slavery, it has a marriage age of 12 years old in canon law, it has punishment.
Hey, what happened to that? Did she
Muhammad
just-
would have been condemned.
For blasphemy. It has even, strike.
Abu Gharib, aka Daniel Hakikichi, just began learning about Christology, and he needs to wait for the early church fathers to appear and to discuss the nature of Jesus. And he's somewhere 2,000 years behind. I wonder how he's using the internet.
The wife, the disobedient self. Oh, the Old Testament is for those times. It's not applicable now, right? That's the argument. The violence, the killing.
All right, we got it. You don't get it.
That's for doing this. I
It's a
think
very, very long way of admitting that you don't understand.
you mean to tell me you're okay to hit your wife and do this and do that and apostasy and all this stuff? That's ridiculous for you to think that. And then you may say, well, look, we're at least staying committed to our faith. They're not. They're picking and choosing what they like and they're not. Like, that could be the argument.
They're
All I'm
picking
saying-
and choosing between the commands that are
And
for
the other
them and the ones that aren't.
is when
And they
you're-
keep choosing the commands that are for them and not the ones that aren't. Shame on them.
They
They're picking
keep
and
following
choosing.
their religion.
Yeah.
They keep following their religion. Why are they doing this?
Stats came out right now as
Terrible.
well about Pew Research on statistics on Muslims' view on LGBTQ. You're now going to go through this as well with your faith, with your religion. Pew Research says that 52% of American Muslims believe homosexuality should be accepted by society.
Oh, yeah, I
This is
saw
according to Pew Research. Among Muslim American millennials, that jumped to 60%. This was done in 2017, so it's 6 years old, which I would assume it's even higher today than what it was then. The survey also revealed that Muslim women are much more accepting of LGBT people than their male counterparts. They're at 63%, men are at 42%. Just so you know, the difference between women and men, about 21% difference. And the vast majority of religious LGBTQ Americans are Christians, split fairly amongst Catholics, 25%, Protestants, 28%, and Christian denominations.
Now, I have to say one thing here, which is American Muslims are very distinct in how they view social, moral things. American Muslims are significantly more, open to different issues and significantly more secular compared to the rest of Muslims around the world, especially compared to European Muslims, if we're talking about those outside the Muslim world. And that has always been the case. Muslims in America have always been more secular than Muslims anywhere else. Daniel now will blame that on 9/11, but that has very little to do with that. Muslims were always like
Patrick is making an important point here, because one of the things we hear from the Andrew Tate crowd is Islam is the only thing that's going to save you from this acceptance of LGBTQ stuff and far left stuff and so on. And he's making the point, wait a minute, Islam is heading in the same direction.
Everywhere.
The more Muslims are exposed to these kinds of issues, the more accepting they become. So
everywhere.
it's the same thing with like, oh, look, that church waved a pride flag over here. See, that proves that Christianity has crumbled and so on. It's like, wait, there are mosques that do the same thing. So So
See?
Islam isn't this powerhouse that's going to fix everything as far as we can see.
So you know what's actually happening here, in my opinion. So Western society is far ahead, and is dealing with is encountering a modern issue
It's a new issue. It's a
and
new
deal-
issue
and
that
dealing
recently
with
came
it.
up. Yeah.
And dealing with it and trying to wrestle with it and understand it. And of course there's a lot of disagreement, a lot of fighting about it, a lot of like, is this good, is this bad, how are you going to do this, and so on. Whereas the Muslim world is very far behind in development, which is why they are only slowly being exposed to it, but it is increasing in the amount of exposure that it gets. So the only thing that I see here is actually that the Muslim world is just behind in development. That's it. And people somehow think because the Muslim world is very far behind in development, oh look, their things are still as they used to be. It looks like there's safety. It looks like there's a more of an attachment to tradition in that. But that's not actually what's happening. What's happening is just that they are behind. And as you can see, all around the Muslim world, morality is changing. All around the Muslim world, people are becoming more and more open to different ideas, more and more going toward progressive and liberal ideas. And then also, they also begin to wrestle with these ideas. Just think about recently, a few weeks ago, Saudi Arabia hosted a concert of Western singers where there were female singers, including the singer or rapper.
Yeah, who's that blonde girl?
Iggy Azalea. She
Yeah.
was there. She went to Saudi Arabia. I can't believe. I could have never believed
She was. I saw Muslims complaining that she was singing about. I don't know what the song is, but
It was called
she was
God.
singing about. Yeah, she was saying worship the goddess and stuff.
Yeah.
And doing that right there in Saudi Arabia.
And she was shaking her body, shaking her booty, bending over, doing all kinds of sexual dances and things like that in the middle of Saudi Arabia. This is something I could have never ever thought of 15 years ago, but this is what they do because they realize that they have to reduce their dependency on the oil. They have nothing else to show for themselves, so they have to somehow embrace different things in order to turn their country, to make their country more appealing to outsiders, for to liberals and all of that. So they think, okay, what else are we going to do? Let's do something that appeals to people that will bring us a different kind of wealth, and they move away from Islamic values, just like the rest of the Islamic world. Now, you say, oh look, the West has all these problems. Society, morality is declining. This is why Islam is the solution. Islam is the solution. Then why is the same thing happening to us?
Yeah,